What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you've seen the thumbnail, you know exactly what we're talking about today. Because on the 15th of March last year, almost a year ago to the date, I backed my first Kickstarter ever, and it was arguably one of the biggest Kickstarters this coffee industry has ever seen. That's right, I've received my Timemore Sculptor. So of course, I've opted for the O78S, 78 being the size of the burrs this grinder uses, and the S is for espresso, because espresso is not spelt with an X. Now at home, I do typically brew espresso. I do have the option for filter coffee with this grinder, as it will do that range of coffee as well. It's just not designed specifically for filter like the other model. I've now had this grinder for quite some time because I really wanted to push the boundaries of it so that I can give you an insight as to not just my first thoughts, but whether it'll espresso well, where are the weak spots, where are the good spots, is this grinder worth buying, and was it worth waiting a year for? Now it was really good timing. My brother's grinder actually broke, so I loaned him my all-ground because I wanted to make sure that this is the only grinder I had access to at home and really push the limits. Now I will jump in here quickly, and if you would like to help support the channel, I have launched the YouTube membership program, and that allows you access to exclusive behind the scenes footage, early access to videos, merch discounts, free coffee and more. That's enough for now guys, let's get back to the video. So we're going to dive straight into my review, and first up I'm going to tell you what I don't like about this grinder. Now first things, we need to have a chat about the dosing cup that this grinder comes with. It self-centers, it looks good, it's nice, it matches the grinder. However, it's missing one thing. See that little ring around the outside of this dosing cup? You need that to make espresso easily. Because how this helps is when you've got coffee in your dosing cup, you can pop it in, spin it over, and then tap it, whatever you want to do. I see some people spin it. Don't spin it, it does nothing. But it does help you stop this thing from going all the way into the bottom. Now, as for the Timemore dosing cup, that can obviously go all the way in, and it kind of gets stuck in there a little bit. It also does pull the coffee inside and leaves a ring around the outside, which kind of makes it a little bit tricky for distribution. If you're trying to stop it from going all the way in, you need to use your fingers on a hot portafilter. Now I've got barista hands, so we're pretty tough when it comes to heat. If you're a home barista, that's not going to be very comfortable. Now the next thing I'm going to point out might divide the room a little bit, because when you RDT with your coffee, so that's when you spray water onto your beans to help it with static, it kind of also makes the beans stick to the hopper. So if you try to pour them in, they get stuck and they end up not being ground and sitting inside the hopper for your next coffee. Obviously you can push them in, but it's a little bit inconvenient. Now I have spoken to quite a few friends and colleagues that have the same grinder and have experienced the same thing, but they did have a very good argument as to why that doesn't matter. We are going to come back to that when we get to the positives. Now there have been quite a few reports of popcorn effect. Now that's when, if you have the lid off and you pour beans in, they shoot back out the hopper. I'm not getting too much of that. I am single dosing of course, and pour the beans in and put the lid back on. In saying that, my brew bar has never been so dirty. So there is obviously something going on. It is throwing out little bits of semi-ground coffee onto my bar. I haven't had too much of an issue with it, but like I said, the brew bar is definitely dirtier than ever. Now the grinder does have an auto off feature, which is great, but I just find it's far too long. I don't think there's anyone that's going to be using this for grinding bags of coffee, nor should you. But I've found to grind one coffee, you put your beans in and you can walk away, go and pull your shot and the thing's still grinding. It will turn itself off eventually, but I just don't know why they've left that time frame for so long. Probably my biggest ick about this grinder, and a lot of people have mentioned it, almost everyone that has one of these grinders or at least reviewed one has said the same thing. I have no idea why the RPM adjustment is at the back of the grinder. There is plenty of room on the side of the grinder just near the power button. I don't really know why they didn't put it there, and I think there might be a version 2 of this thing coming, and if it's not on the side of the grinder, then they're really not paying attention. Now I know it sounds like I'm beating this thing up, but I promise there are a lot of good things to say about this, and we're going to get into that now. Now when I received this grinder, I was at the cafe and it was a little bit busy, pulled it out of the box because I was super excited, and I turned it on. I thought it was broken. It's so quiet, I actually thought it didn't turn on. That power button, switched it on, and I thought nothing moved. So I pulled the lid off, looked down inside, and I could see the auger spinning, but I couldn't hear it. It is insanely quiet. Now, with a little surprise that Sky and I have got on the way, we're gonna need this thing to be as quiet as possible. So yes, this thing is insanely quiet. It's probably the quietest grinder I have heard in a very, very long time. I actually can't think of anything that I have heard better than this. The next thing I noticed about this grinder is it generates some incredible aromas. I love your typical Ethiopian and African coffees with big, bright, fruity aromas, and this thing definitely hits the nail on the head when it comes to that. So one of the smartest features on this grinder, I think, is the little fines cleaner. So coming back to that whole not being able to RDT thing, you kind of don't need to RDT because it catches those grinds for you. All grinders are going to create fines unless you're spending Uber dollars, which I don't have and you probably don't have. That's why you're watching me. But that grounds cleaner removes the need for RDT, which is fantastic. It's very, very clever, and it's actually quite simple how it works, and I can't see it ever having a problem. So one of the things we're seeing in a lot of grinders coming to the market right now is variable RPM. If you watch the barista games, you would have noticed that on the Sanremo X1, that is one of the biggest features you can do on the fly. It's really simple, and it does make a huge difference to your coffee. To have that in a grinder of this caliber is very helpful to really help you dial in your coffees. Now this one's a little bit more of an opinion, but I think it looks great. It's very sleek, it's very modern, it fits my brew bar quite well. It does come in black as well, and there are two sizes available. So there is a 64mm version with quite a small motor, which probably wouldn't suit my application of use. Now when it comes to consistency, this thing is a 9.9 out of 10. It is repeatable. Back to back to back, I can make the same coffee, even using the Breville. It's very impressive. It removes a lot of the issues I have found with other grinders in the past. Now in the 78mm version of this grinder, you get a whopping 400 watt motor, which is very impressive for home use, and you get very small inconsistency in that RPM, because like we just spoke about, you do want variable RPM, but you want to be able to control it to get a good, consistent espresso or filter coffee. Now, this grinder is definitely worth the money, even at full retail. Now, if you're lucky enough to buy this thing at the early bird price, you've got yourself probably one of the best grinders you're ever going to get for that price. Now, I do have a couple of funky experiments I'm going to do with this grinder, and one of the things I really want to do is get my hands on a DF83 version 2, which is something I've spoken to a couple of people about, and we should have it very soon so that I can really put it up against something, same price range, similar size burrs, and a similar size motor, just to sort of see how it goes and give you guys a good insight into which one you might want to look at. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep an eye out for these videos in the future. And of course, make sure you check out the Barista Games playlist that we've just launched. It's going quite well. It was a massive, massive day. It was 16 hours of filming for myself. I've just launched all 4 episodes. The 4th one currently is only available to members, which we spoke about earlier. From $1.49, support the channel and you get early access to videos like this. But that's all for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a great day and happy brewing. Let's go. Probably the biggest, I didn't want to I've loaned my,